Hanging at the Reef is brought to you by Hawaii Pacific University's Holomua Commitment, making private university education affordable and accessible for Hawaii students. Learn more about the Holomua Commitment at hpu.edu/holomua.
Aloha, and welcome to a brand new season of Hanging at the Reef. I'm your host, Jeffrey Rich, Vice President of Marketing and Communications at Hawaii Pacific University, and I'm thrilled to be kicking off Season 2 of the podcast. Whether you've been with us since the beginning or you're tuning in for the first time, mahalo for joining us. This season, we're diving even deeper into conversations with people who are shaping education, business, culture, and the future of work. And there's no better guest to start us off than Ryan Tin-Loy. Ryan has spent more than a decade helping students, alumni, and professionals find their path forward. As Senior Career Services Advisor at HPU, he works every day to connect people with opportunities and with the confidence to pursue them. Before joining the university, Ryan built a career in both the government and nonprofit sectors, and he brings a unique perspective shaped by his service in the U.S. military, both as an active duty member and a reservist. He holds a master's in counseling, multiple professional certifications, and is passionate about aligning purpose with career. Whether you're figuring out your first job, making a career pivot, or just curious about how to thrive in a changing world, this conversation has something for you. Well, welcome to the show, Ryan. We're glad to have you with us today here on Hanging at the Reef. And you are a counselor and advisor in HPU's Career Services Center. So you are living in the midst of massive disruption and change in the job market, maybe at the forefront of things that are changing in our society in general. And it's got to be pretty scary for a lot of students going through college and saying, "Wait, what's the job market gonna look like when I get out of here?" But the first question I wanted to ask you is, you've been at this for a while, and when you think about the differences today in career services and how students think about and approach finding that first job versus maybe when you started, back early in your career, what's different? What's most different today?
I think the thing that's most different is that there's this emphasis on hands-on work. So it's not just about getting your degree. I think there's this misconception a lot of times from parents and sometimes with young students coming in, why do I need to get a degree? It's actually quite changed from when I started like 13, 14 years ago. There's a lot of hands-on work. So you're actually learning and building hands-on skills which you're applying to your resume at the same time.
Yep. But today there's a lot of questioning over the value of a college degree. Is that going to help me get a job? AI is taking entry-level jobs. I think I saw a statistic just this week that for the first time ever, the unemployment rate for recent college graduates exceeds the national average for unemployment. So we're clearly seeing something very different happening in the market right now. What do you hear when students come in and they talk about this dynamic and what worries them?
There's a little bit of this fear and anxiety. They're not sure how to interpret a lot of times the national data. They're not sure, is my degree still going to be worth it when I graduate? So what we try to do is emphasize to them is try to make yourself multifaceted. Don't just think of yourself as just getting one degree, specializing in this one area. Even for a nursing student, I encourage you, take some writing classes, take a Coursera class. We want you to be as multidimensional as possible. And I want to talk about more of that as we kind of get into the conversation.
Yeah. One of the dynamics is, and I'm sure we're going to touch upon AI quite a bit here because it's so pervasive in the marketplace. But the ability to apply that technology in virtually any field, like you said, whether you're a nurse or you're going into a business field, that's a skill that almost seems a prerequisite today for employers. Is that what you're hearing when you talk with employers and what they're looking for?
Yeah. Most employers want students or new workers to come in with some kind of baseline knowledge of AI. I think as a student, you need to kind of look at AI and figure out, okay, how am I going to apply it to my specific field? Because not every student is going to apply AI in the same way. Going back to the nursing student, they may apply it more as from a medical record keeping, a medical technology integration. A business student may look at it more as from a profit point of view. If I'm a new worker, I'm going to be looking at it more as how can I beef up my resume? So you need to kind of figure out how does AI integrate with my career and my degree program.
Interesting. When you think about the jobs that are most in demand right now, what comes top of the list? And are many of those things that require, an understanding or an ability to apply AI?
Despite all the market disruption, careers in regarding to STEM, computer science, nursing, those will still be like your hot careers that we still kind of see. Um, what we do see is a lot more mobility. There's going to be a lot more change in the workplace. You're not going to have the steady career of 30, 35 years in one place. You're going to have to be able to move every 2 to 3 years to a different location, a different locale, and you need to be able to adjust to the organizational culture and technology of that particular institution.
Yeah, that's been, sort of a misnomer for many years in the job market. I remember my generation who entered work in the late 80s and early 90s was one of the first generations where that dynamic really took hold, where you recognized you were not going to work for the next 20, 30 years for the same company
Yeah.
and retire, with a gold watch and a pension.
Yeah.
That just doesn't happen much anymore because so few organizations offer pensions
Yeah.
or, people move around.
Yeah.
So how do employers look at that, though? Because that was such a stigma for so long if you saw a job candidate who had too many short stays in different places, but today it's the norm.
Yeah, I would say if I was to do a resume review in 2019 and I saw like 5 different jobs in 10 years, that would be an automatic red flag. These days, that's common. It's actually even raises more questions if you've been with the same employer for 10, 15 years. Are you too comfortable? Are you not comfortable with change? So these days, like how you mentioned, being with the same organization, it can actually have a negative effect because you're not growing as an individual.
Yep. Yeah. And the hiring managers often have had similar experiences where they've moved around a lot, so they don't look the same way at a candidate who's had that same experience.
Yeah.
One of the pervasive questions that have been asked in higher ed for the last 20 plus years is, as the job market shifts, and students come in and they think about majors to pursue, there's been a question over the value of a liberal arts education, at least at the undergrad level. Now, I've heard a lot of discussion about what makes for really good prompt writing in AI, and one of the contentions that I've heard a lot of banter about is how students that pursue liberal arts degrees have such broad educations and have expertise and knowledge in different disciplines because of their academic experience that they're right effectively better prompts for AI because they're drawing upon a broader base of knowledge and using multidisciplinary questions and thoughts to help draw out better outcomes or output from an AI application. So I know our liberal arts faculty are extremely excited to hear that trend. And it's something that I think is maybe driving more students to consider pursuing a broader education versus a specific degree in a specific field. Are you seeing that dynamic play out?
Yeah, actually, according to the State of Hawaii Department of Labor and Industrial Relations, philosophy majors are actually one of the top 5 majors in Hawaii that tend to have the lowest unemployment rate.
Philosophy majors.
Yes, philosophy.
That's new, right? Because if you had said that not even 10 years ago, they would have maybe had the lowest unemployment rate.
Yep,
or the highest, I should say.
Yep, they actually have one of the lowest unemployment rates is because of that capability to think broadly, to apply their knowledge broadly. They're not just a one-trick pony, and they know how to use AI more effectively. One thing I would add, though, especially here at Hawaii Pacific University, is that a lot of our liberal arts students, they have other things that they're going. They're developing different skill sets. They have minors. They're doing study abroad. So they're developing a wide range of skill sets, both technical and non-technical.
Wow. What are other ways that students can cultivate those career interests? Internships, for example. I think most schools, most programs now almost require an internship somewhere. But talk about how internships can play a vital role in helping students explore careers, understand maybe some of the nuances of a career that they thought looked fun or really rewarding. Then all of a sudden they're in it and they say, this is not what I expected. But how does that experience play out for students?
I always say that internships can have a dual effect. It can either validate your career expectations and your major expectations. Like, I'm a junior and senior, I want to stay in this career. Or if you're a sophomore, junior, you know what? I absolutely hate this. I don't like it. Okay, now you know what not to do. So it can help you change your career trajectory. So internships can really work either way for our students. And especially here at our institution and probably other institutions as well, it is becoming more mandatory. For specific colleges, you need to at least put in like a 3-credit internship.
Now, when students go into college, are they often, most are expected, or many, I should say, are expected to pursue an internship? Is the university providing assistance in finding that opportunity, or are students expected to kind of go out, beat the bushes and find themselves an internship somewhere?
Our office is there to assist students. So we definitely can help students trying to find and locate the type of internship that kind of best matches their needs. Also, we have the Handshake platform, which is a great platform to kind of search, but there's so many resources our faculty. Our faculty have so many connections out in the field that they can also assist the students in finding their internship of their dreams. Also, fellow students. We've had so many students that, hey, this internship is great. You know what? I'm graduating. I want to pass it on to the next.
Yeah. And networking, I know one of the things that most people hate to do is, if you're in a sales career, you better like cold calling, although few people answer the phone anymore. But networking, right? Finding alumni that went to the same university, or networking to find contacts in specific companies through friends, family, and alumni as well. How important of an activity is that, and how much of an obstacle is that for young people today when they come in and you're counseling them to reach out to people digitally, pick up the phone and call people digitally? I imagine there's a lot of resistance to doing that today, given the culture that we live in, where people seem very isolated with their mobile device and want to talk anonymously to each other, maybe via text, but don't want to have direct conversations.
I actually think of networking as a long-term investment. So this is not something, and I actually try to build those bridges. That's the first day you come onto campus. I don't think networking is something you should start. I mean, don't get me wrong. You can start at any time in your academic career, but the earlier, the better. Networking can take time. And in our culture here in Hawaii with the law spirit, we want to develop our connections. We want it to be kind of lifelong connections. I don't want, networking to just be like a one and done. I want you to develop and kind of flourish these connections, and it can take time. So you have to start that very first day. It may turn into something, it may not, but you want to try to develop those connections down the line. So you want to start early as possible.
Yeah, I tell this to younger people that ask me for advice. As an older stage career person at this point, it is nearly impossible to stand out and to find a job if all you're doing is sending out resumes in the mail or even electronically. It's just people are just so inundated, and I imagine there's dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands of candidates for each and every job. So sometimes the only way to get your foot in the door is to make that personal connection and to have somebody advocating for you behind the scenes with a hiring manager, for example. And I know one of the great ways to do that is the application LinkedIn. Are you seeing younger people come in to career services already knowing about the application and the importance of networking using LinkedIn, or are you having to really teach them to understand how important a tool that is in building a network?
I think they understand what LinkedIn is, but I don't think they're putting enough effort into it. So a lot of times, especially during like our Unit 1000 freshman seminar class, okay, I know what LinkedIn is, but their profile seems rather blank. There's been no updates. There's no pictures. There's nothing that defines them. So it's really about how do you kind of optimize LinkedIn. So that's where the stage that we're at. Most students kind of already know, but they're not optimizing it to the fullest capacity.
Yeah, I think that's such a big miss for so many students that don't take advantage of that opportunity to merchandise themselves and to recognize that I think there are very few jobs that I've encountered and candidates for jobs that I've been involved in hiring or interviewing that I've not first thing go directly to their LinkedIn profile and see what's up there. And when it's underwhelming or they don't even have one, especially in a communications or marketing related field where I work, that's a pretty big red flag right out of the gate. So I look at either the university has not adequately prepared that student to enter the job market, or they just haven't paid attention to what they've been told. And that's not, either one is not a good sign, right? What are other ways that you connect students with employers? Are there other venues that you create aggregation points? But give us a little sense of other ways that you can make those connections.
Especially doing like our employer information sessions. So throughout the year, we will have different employers come on campus. They'll spend like about an hour talking about their opportunities, their organizational culture. That is your time as a student to kind of start engaging, exchange a business card, find out more information. You know what? I missed the internship application period now, but I want to apply next year. What can I know? Can I follow up with you later? That's a great point. And it's free because we're already bringing them on campus for you. Another opportunity is during our career events. You don't have to necessarily be looking for a job, just making conversation with people, just finding out about the different products and services that they offer. All great ways to start hitting the ground running. And again, all of these sessions, all free for our students, and we bring it to you.
Yep. So It also seems smart to advise students to really prepare for those discussions, right?
Yeah.
Being prepared with some information so you can ask very poignant questions that demonstrate that you've engaged with what that business is all about. So that's something that I see a lot of misses with students, that with all the availability of information online, the ability to just, even use AI to give you a summary of a business's strategy and their market position. And it seems like so few people do that these days. But boy, does that have an impact when you sit down with somebody and they start reciting statistics about your sales or referencing specific things on your website that demonstrate brand position. And how important do you view that to be in making that connection? And how resistant are students sometimes to taking those extra steps?
Yeah, we always kind of emphasize to students to do some research on the company. I want you to find out what is their mission statement. What are their values? What are their company values? You need to know some of this basic cursory information before you start engaging with an employer. Employers love it when when you talk about their products, their services, their resources. And the best way you can do it is about researching through the organization. So I always recommend to students start with their mission statement. What are they about? A lot of times, some students don't even know what those particular organizations do. I said it's great that you start with the mission statement so you can kind of see where do those points connect? Where do their values and your values kind of integrate? And how can you build up a connection with that?
Yeah. And that, like anything else that has a reward, it takes a little effort to do that. You got to spend some time reading, researching. I would recommend also customizing your communications materials. So write a really eloquent, specific cover letter that talks about why you're a good fit for that organization and demonstrates, the data points that you've taken in to say, hey, I know what this business is all about. But personalization seems to become an ever increasingly important part of a job search. And one of the big differences that I've noticed working, say, here in higher education versus the corporate world is in the corporate world, we would go right to the resume. And a lot of times, kind of even chuck the cover letter and assume that it would be some, sort of repetitive thing.
Mhm.
But in higher education, and I imagine some other industries, it's the cover letter that is sometimes even more important than the resume. And that's definitely true in higher education. Have you seen that in other industries as well?
Definitely. Yes. Yeah. Especially here in higher education and in different industries, the cover letter tells me a story about the candidate.
Yeah.
I find it opposite. Sometimes the resume can kind of look repetitive, but with the cover letter, I can see where do our values align? Where do these connections kind of integrate? And I can know more about yourself. I always tell students, try to create a theme in your cover letter. What is your theme? What is the thing about you that kind of stands out from somebody else? Everybody should have like an individual theme, kind of like a movie trailer. I love movie trailers. Kind of come up with your theme, in your cover letter. It has to be short, quick, 2 minutes, but it has to stand out from somebody else.
You mentioned treat it like a movie or a trailer. There were times when you would see resumes with a picture of a candidate on there, or some that would actually do videos. And there was a time where that was frowned upon a little bit and thought it was a little cheesy. I don't think that's the view anymore. I think with multimedia so pervasive and social media, such a big part of everything we do, and everybody's ability to create really high production value video content, how important in today's job market is that to do in terms of creating a video narrative and not just relying on a traditional resume? But would you recommend that students go that far today?
In the past, having a photo would be considered like a red flag.
Yes.
Now it's kind of like a personal choice. If you're going into business, marketing, or communications, real estate, entertainment industry, you may need to have some kind of video cover, a link, something that connects to maybe to like a YouTube video. Those things might be necessary for you to kind of stand out. So it's not so much of a red flag anymore. Now, of course, you may have like your nursing or science majors that may have like a more traditional look, but it's not, it's more like a personalized choice for each student.
Yeah. And I imagine using AI to create those materials is a good demonstration of understanding of how they're applied and the ability to use them. So that in and of itself becomes a positive thing for the employer to see a really well-polished, well-produced set of materials, whether it's multimedia content or editorial content. What are other ways that you would advise students to break from the pack and to set themselves apart and to reach the people that they want to connect with to find the right opportunities for themselves?
Of course, AI is a great place to start too. When I run into this writer's block, I need like a prompt. I need something to kind of break me out of this block that I'm at. So, AI might be a good place to start. But also, I think we overlook our peers. We overlook our staff. We overlook our faculty too as well. The resources and everything is right there as well. For example, we at the Career Development Center, we can help review your resume. We can take a look at it. We can look at the points and say, you know what, we need to polish up here. You know what, this part here, we need to strengthen this a little bit more. You want to get as much perspectives as possible. So sometimes just relying on some of the internal resources that we have available, which is often overlooked, that's a good place to start too.
Yeah. And I know that you've got a strong background in instructional design and counsel students a lot in skill building. So when you think about beginning their job search, it would probably make a lot of sense for them to approach it as an instructional designer and say, okay, I'm going to educate an audience about myself. How am I going to do that? What set of digital materials could I create? I've got a resume over here. I've got multimedia content over here. I may want to create a website about myself and demonstrate a portfolio if you're in a field where a body of work can be assembled and presented. Is it important to go that far today in a world where the work that you're going to be doing in so many fields is going to be that same sort of work that you're doing to market and merchandise yourself to prospective employers?
I look at it, every single student, alumnus, or job seeker, we're all individual project managers. So our resume, when we're in the job search mode, we have to create and treat ourselves like this project management kind of method. What are the resources? What are the materials that we need to build? What are the targets that we're looking for? What are the networking and different resources? It has to be like a project management model.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to look at it. Project management, understanding the scopes of work that you need to complete to market yourself effectively. Do you see a lot of students take advantage of the alumni networks of universities? You know, it could be intimidating for a young person, you know, to want to pick up and call the CEO of a company who's also a graduate from that institution. Have you seen over the years that you've been in this field more of an aversion as we've gotten into this current period of students making those or attempting to make those direct connections? Or do you see more willingness among students to do that? Or is it the same as it may have been 20 years ago?
I do think that over like 13, 14 years ago, the alumni has gotten stronger. So now we have like a stronger network of individuals that are willing, wanting, desiring to connect with our current students. There's been some momentum there, but I do think our current students do need a little bit pushed. They do need more education and more emphasis. But what's even stronger now is like we have like, you know, hundreds of alumni that are just waiting to connect, both personally and virtually as well.
So for the students listening out there, what Ryan is telling you is our alumni and many schools alumni want to hear from you. That's something that makes them feel good to give back and to help young people achieve maybe that first job or a career progression that might be paying back. They got that same opportunity when they were younger and alumni helped them. But is it true that today's student, because of social media and because of this sort of isolation that's brought about by, you know, our devices that we carry that let us connect more anonymously, that it's more difficult to get a student to do that today than it may have been 20 years ago, where it wasn't uncommon to pick up the phone and call somebody, and the chances of them answering that call are pretty high, where today it's not. They're not going to pick up the phone. Everybody screens their calls and nobody answers an unknown number for the most part, right?
Yeah. We see that to this day. So a lot of times students are kind of beholden to their devices. Even when they come to our information sessions, I can even talk about a career first too. Too oftentimes they're still looking at their devices. I'm like, person is right in front of you. They're waiting to develop a connection. All you need to do is ask that first question.
Yeah.
You know, so we do need to kind of change that paradigm that we're kind of experiencing right now.
So I imagine we talked earlier about aggregation events, job fairs and all, but getting to go to maybe an alumni event and getting students connected with alumni at mixers and things like that becomes an important strategy for helping them to cultivate those skills as well as make those direct connections. And I know that's a big activity for alumni relations departments in universities to assemble those groups of alumni, and hopefully they're also inviting us, at least a select group of students, to network with them. Let's talk more about the future of the job market. And what are some of the big trends that you see? We've talked a lot about AI, but where else is the economy moving and job growth happening right now?
I think we're moving away from like a specialized economy where one person is very specialized in one particular job. I think we're going back to this generalist, because people need to manage resources and programs, and they need to wear so many different hats, like myself. Employer relations, career advisor, counselor. So I need to move fluidly between these different roles. I believe new workers are going to have that capability as well. So if you're like a philosophy major and you're really great at writing, you may need to be able to understand how financial reports are written. Take that Excel class, take that Coursera Excel class, that project management class. Get a little bit of cursory knowledge on that so you know how a business works, but you can also write dynamically as well. So you need to be able to wear multiple hats and kind of think of yourself as like a generalist.
Wow, that is a big shift from where we were, where we saw specialization becoming very dominant just a few years ago. And again, I would imagine AI is having a big role in that and creating a need for people with generalized knowledge and the ability to work across a multitude of facets. What about the difference between information economy jobs and jobs that might be more rooted in, physically producing something? Obviously, there's opportunities, in both of those areas. But when you talk with students, is that something that becomes really important to help them understand where are you going to be happiest when you think about a long-term career? Or are you talking more to them about, just getting a foot in the door with something out of the gate? So what's the balance between counseling a student to follow their dreams and their passions and look for jobs in that field versus the trade-off of saying, hey, you're competing against a lot of people for a limited number of jobs, and you may not get your dream job right out of the gate, but everything is a building process.
Yeah.
So what's your philosophy in terms of those choices that students have to think about?
Those are two great dynamics that you kind of pointed out. But what I like to tell students is sometimes it's not an either or. Maybe it can be both. Sometimes just getting your foot in your door is the immediate need, but you still want to pursue your passion. So find ways to kind of combine thinking long term and short term. Take those two things together and try to find a way to set yourself apart. I want every student to be happy with their degree of choice here. But, of course, every degree has limitations on what they can do and what they can produce. But I want them to find a comfort level that satisfies their immediate need in terms of financial, but also their long-term growth because they want to be happy in what they do.
Yeah. We work with a lot of students here in our office, and I ask a lot of students, what are you looking to do with yourself for a career?
Yeah.
And I would say the number one job that I hear right now is they want to be an influencer. And, yeah, of course, a little chuckle comes out when you hear that. But I feel like, we're at a point in time where it's possible to do that without being a celebrity, for example, right? If you're smart and you can create something interesting and you can figure out how to break through, you can develop a following and you can make money by aggregating clicks. But I think this is a fleeting time in our history where eventually you're going to get back to a point where to become an influencer, you must already be a celebrity versus, becoming a celebrity because you were successful as an influencer. And I don't know that young people completely understand that dynamic because there is an ability to make money by, getting clicks to, social media presence or a website. But what do you talk to students about when they come in with that belief that that's going to be their career path, that they're going to essentially just create video and people are going to click on it and that's going to be enough to support themselves through their life?
I always kind of emphasize to students that, it's going to take time for a lot of these things. So there's a little bit of realistic conversations that I need to have with students. So I say, yeah, that might be great, but what's going to happen? Because you're right, our economy is eventually going to stabilize. We're going to come back to this, point of normalcy. That money may dry up. So what are you going to do? So you need to think long term. So yes, this might be helpful in the next year or two, but can you foresee that happening in the next 5 to 10 years? So you need to start laying roots now. You need to start thinking about the networking, getting back to the basics. The networking, having a strong, tight resume, thinking of yourself as like an individual project manager. Put those basic fundamentals to work for yourself now. Don't let go of those basic fundamentals. But it's okay to have that dream, but understand that things can change.
For sure. And I always try and get them to just kind of move their thinking over a little bit when they come in and say, I want to be an influencer. And think, okay, what you're really saying is you want to be a content creator. In this case, you want to create content about yourself and monetize it by driving people to like it and share it and look at it, engage with it, which generates money for you. And that's great. But the broader career application you're talking about is the creation of interesting content. Yeah. And you can do that for, virtually any industry,
right?
Any service, any product. Everybody needs to tell their story. And whether it's through social media or just general marketing outreach, those are jobs that are now and will always be in demand. But, with AI becoming pervasive, it changes the things that you do in that career pathway, where, you might be the one who's thinking about the channels of communication, the types of messaging and multimedia content that appeals. AI might be helping you create that content, but you're still the one that's driving the strategy and figuring out how and what to produce. That's the career pathway. That will be a fruitful long-term career path versus just trying to say, do a travel, blog and make some money off that short term. Okay, what do you do when that has run its course? So it's a good step into other careers in maybe social media, broader marketing and content creation. So those are things that young people should think about as well. What about the student that's coming in looking to set themselves up to move on to say master's level education, but they want to take a little time and get some job experience? What do you recommend to those students that might be tracking towards a specific career,
Mhm.
but their next step is to broaden their knowledge set and to make them more appealing to getting accepted to graduate school or to an employer once they get that graduate level degree?
Yeah, we have those students that come by, like, I'm going to be graduating in December, but I want to take the next 1 or 2 years to kind of discover myself, discover my passion. When we encounter students that have like this break, like before they start in grad school, whether it be an MBA, I always encourage them, take this time to not just kind of self-reflect, but explore different careers or passions. What we end up finding out is that they want to do something that's completely different from what they majored in.
Yeah.
So it's like, take this time to really find out more about you. It may be traveling, it may be engaging, volunteering, but now you're going to really discover yourself before you kind of take the step before in that graduate degree. Try different things and work here, farm, whatever it is, but try to kind of discover your passion.
Wow. And also it's okay to change career pathways, right? I mean, I don't, how about you? Did you start out doing what you're doing now? Where did you start your
I
career?
worked in state government. I was in the military for 20 years too. So it's like I wore different hats, worked in different fields. So yeah, I mean, higher education chose me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all do. I started my career. I worked for an investment bank in finance industry, and now here I am in marketing and communications, 30 some years later. And I think it's important to tell students that that's okay.
Yeah.
It's, especially when you're starting out in your early 20s and you feel like, I don't know if this is the right career for me. Um, but what I would say also is figure that out and try and make some of those decisions early, because the trap that you get, caught in is if you track in a career for a little bit, you start making more money, you progress in that career, and it makes it harder and harder to switch careers because you might have to take a step back and take a pay cut or reduce title because you're moving to a new industry. So those are things that are okay and actually important, but oftentimes students don't feel are right or feel comfortable doing it.
Yeah.
How do you counsel those students to move through those decisions?
So fortunately, us at the Career Development Center, we have some great career assessments that we have students take. And I'm certified to administer and review these career assessments. They are the Myers-Briggs type indicator and the strong interest inventory. These are great resources for students and alumni to take and figure out, okay, is this where I want to be? Does industries that my personality align with, are they reflected in my career assessment report? But the strong interest inventory, it's great for the student that's changed major like 10 times. This will help direct them to the right major, the right career field, and right industry. So I always kind of go back to that. Okay, let's start with this career assessment. So let's lay down, a baseline plan. There's nothing wrong with changing major. There's nothing wrong with changing careers. But this will at least help you kind of solidify and have more of a target as opposed to just moving wherever the wind goes.
Yep. Yep. Always have a plan, or at least be thinking about a plan.
Yeah.
And too, I think it's important for younger people to realize too that obtaining goals isn't, I think, as difficult and as daunting a challenge as many people think. If you set a goal to accomplish something, and you have the understanding that you may not accomplish that goal immediately, but if everything that you do in your life going forward and with small decisions moves you in that direction, it's almost impossible to not achieve that goal, is what I've found through my life experience. And it's hard for young people to think about it that way because everybody thinks about the attainment of a goal as a conscious effort and, immediate and direct decisions that accomplish that. And it's really not that way. It's small incremental decisions that keep you tracking towards a certain job or a change in a career pathway. So things don't happen overnight. And that's another piece of advice that I found is important to give young people is learn to have a little patience and, have your goals and work towards them, but don't expect everything to happen overnight.
Enjoy the journey is one thing I'll tell students too. I like having checklists every day. Most of the time, I won't check off everything on my daily list, but I still feel accomplished because I like the journey. I like going through the process. So take your time to enjoy the journey. Enjoy the steps, enjoy the people that you meet along the way and the, positive influence you can have on others.
Yep. Well, in this dynamic, ever-changing market, there have got to be new innovations in your industry that you see on the horizon. Things, virtual reality interviews, online mentorship platforms. What are some of the things that you believe are going to become very important in your field as we move forward?
Micro internships. They've already popped up a few years ago, but I think these will become more prevalent.
What is that exactly?
Traditionally, an internship may last like an entire semester, and they can be as much as like 200 hours. Micro internship might just be a week. 20 hours or 15 hours. We can integrate these into programs because a student these days, a lot of our students, they work jobs. Some of them have 2 jobs. So, but I still want to get hands-on experience in my field. A micro internship might be just for you, a week here, a week there at this organization. I do think that will become more prevalent, especially in higher education, where students can take these small micro internships throughout the year. They may have 10 different experiences in a 4-year career.
Wow, that does sound like an interesting opportunity. And is it hard for the company though to, have somebody come in for a week or two on a micro internship
Yeah.
basis and do something of relevance?
Yeah. So right now, there are a few organizations. For example, I know like one of the banks here, but they'll treat it as like a project. So, okay, we have a project that we need a few students to work on. We're digitizing records, or we're doing this, creating a campaign. This is the length of time. It may be like 5 to 7 days, and this is how much students that we need. As a student, you can kind of pick and choose which project I want to go for.
Yeah, very cool. Other things we've already talked about, like the importance of LinkedIn or cover letters and strong resumes. But I imagine that we're in an era now where almost everybody, is going to likely do some sort of a Zoom interview at some point early in the game. So, how are you helping students prepare better for interviewing on a Zoom call and versus face-to-face interactions?
Yeah. So we've actually been doing it for quite a while with Zoom interviews, even phone interviews. There's still some people that do phone interviews. And the way I tell students, treat it as like an actual interview. Even if it's a phone interview, smile, pretend that you're speaking to somebody, still dress the part. Keep your mannerisms all in a professional manner, even though they may or may not see you. One of the hotels that we work with, they actually have a recorded interview. So you do a recorded interview first. You can't really see the screen, and then you submit it later. So I tell the students, even though you're looking at the bank screen, smile, dress professionally, treat it like there's an actual person there.
Wow, great advice. And I imagine that's going to become pretty pervasive in the future, where the first step is not just, email your resume in there, but you're asked to do a recorded online interview as a first pass to demonstrate your knowledge or interest in the job. Is that happening more times than not already, or is that something you would think in the next couple of years will become pretty much the dominant way to take a first step into a job?
We do see it a lot with maybe more executive or leadership positions, where they start immediately with the video presentations and so forth. I do see it happening more frequently, even for staff line or entry-level positions. Before, if I'm an organization and I'm going to invest a lot of money into an individual, especially there's going to be like relocation costs involved, I want to make sure they're the right individual.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start these visual presentations early on in their career. Then we'll get into the first, the person in phase interviews.
What's the number one deficiency that you hear from employers and young people entering the job market today? Where do they not have the skills, or the social interaction components as well come into play? But where's the biggest deficiency that you hear?
Interpersonal communication.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest, we get comments, even like our networking events and our career fairs. Students are not sure how to approach and present themselves. They're not asking the right questions. They're not sure how to engage. Also, attaining a certain level of confidence. I think we need to kind of put that back into our students, feeling confident in whatever product, their background that they can, put forth to an employer. We need to kind of give our students that sense of confidence again.
So that's an important one. And when I think just a couple of years ago, what I was hearing from hiring managers and employers in terms of the number one thing they're looking for is an ability of an employee to come in, to plug in as a collaborative part of a team. So you and I work in environments with a lot of people, and teamwork and collaboration is essential for your success. But that seems counter to the way young people are living their lives today, in social isolation, oftentimes communicating digitally, with short communications on text messaging or social posts. So how does that get reconciled if the number one thing, or among the number one things that employers are looking for, is a team collaborative sort of approach, but that's counter to how young people are living their lives today?
I actually think it depends on program too. Here at HP, our communications majors, they're great at project management type of environments. They know how to work in team-based projects. Some of our other majors, not so much. So I do think that we need to kind of start early on building up more teamwork, more team-based assignments, internships that emphasize not just working individually, but also working part of a conglomerate, working part of a team. I think that's important. And I do think students should take courses that kind of give them that exposure. Take something outside of your major that gives you the opportunity to work with people in groups. especially like in our communications and marketing programs.
Yeah, and that's important too. As I, talk with professors, and I've taught a course myself, is trying to move more towards team-based projects versus individual projects, so that they come out with that understanding of how to work together. AI too. Just when you think about assignments in class, more and more professors now are starting to not just accept the use of AI, but give specific direction on what they want you and how they want you to use it within that course versus just assuming that it's going to be used as a writing aid or something.
Right.
So yeah, so we're seeing this shift right here as we speak. And I imagine the next couple of years will bring things that we can't expect today. And we got to continue to be very mobile and malleable to adapt as the market adapts.
Yeah.
Well, Ryan, this has been a fantastic conversation. What are the best ways that folks can connect with you, whether it's a student, an employer, or somebody that just wants to understand how career services functions within a university setting? What would be good ways to connect with you?
Interested students as well as participating organizations may contact the Career Development Center at 808-544-0230 or through email at cdc@hpu.edu. Mahalo.